The Riddle of the Earth, Chapter 9. Some Famous Comets. One of the most interesting cometary histories is that of Biela's comet, discovered by an Austrian after whom it was named in the 18th century. Its period was about every 6¾ years, but it was not always observed. In 1832 its track was calculated to cross the path of the Earth, and in spite of the calm unconcern of astronomers, great fear was felt in France and the United States of a collision, with the result that the churches were crowded. 13 years later another so-called visit was paid by Biela's, but after attaining perihelion it split into two parts, which drifted nearly 150,000 miles apart. Tails shot out and the two nuclei burst into rival activity. It was conjectured that Biela's may have struck some solid body in space. There was an arc light as a bridge between the two parts. In 1852 Biela's was identified as a twin comet, but the distance between them had enormously increased. Since that year it has never been identified, but in 1866, in November, the period of Biela's return, the world beheld a most brilliant meteor shower, and in 1872, 1885 and 1892, corresponding with its former orbit, there were imposing displays of meteors in November. In 1892 another remarkable shower was witnessed in the United States. This same year coincided with two other comets, Swift's and Holmes', which many thought was Biela's. In America the public were terrified and again flocked into the churches. Elgay suggests that the November Andromedes meteors may be the remains of Biela's comet, and the Glamorgan tornado of November 1st, 1913 may have been a vestige of this body. It is to be remarked that the months of May and November, the one related to Halley's comet and the other to Biela's, were the days specially noted by the ancients as the dangerous periods. If Biela's had collided with the Earth in 1832, it would stagger the imagination to foretell the effects, and yet it was quite a possible contingency. Biela's comet is not the only one by any manner of means. Lexell's 1770, with a nucleus said to have been 5 times the size of the moon, was supposed to have had a period of 5½ years, but it has never again been seen. Another missing member is Brorson's comet of 1846, which has failed to appear at its allotted times. Temple's comet of 1865 to 66 belongs to a class which seems to be related to the Leonids of every 33⅓ years. Donati's comet of 1851 was the most splendid comet of the century. It had a head like a serpent, its body near the nucleus twisted and turned like a gigantic red serpent, and its tail, flashing like golden scales, spread over 40 million miles. It has never returned. The comet of 1889 displayed some strange methods after perihelion. It had 4 attendant sprites, 2 faint, which soon died out, and 2 like the parent body. The latter 2 drifted apart, one faded, and the other returned with a swelled nucleus and no tail. Halley's comet of 1892 followed a path which brought it near the Earth, and much apprehension was aroused. It was round and sharply defined, but after perihelion became exceedingly faint. It afterwards suddenly brightened and then disappeared. The path of this comet, directed between Mars and Jupiter in the zone of minor planets, has caused many to wonder whether it did not pulse upon one of those, thus creating a new epoch in its existence. Brooks' comet of 1893 was also interesting. It had 4 attendants. On October 20th it had 2 tails, one symmetrical, but the next day the tail was shattered, bent, distorted, and deflected. The nucleus broke into knots, and the appearance was that of a fiery torch. The general opinion was that it had struck some solid obstacle in space. Encke's comet is, of all cometary bodies, the most reliable. Its orbit is about 3 1/3 years, the smallest of all, but it falsifies calculations by generally arriving ahead of its time. The explanation put forward by astronomers is that Encke's is losing centrifugal force. Is that how you say that? Centrifugal? Yeah. Is shortening its orbit and is consequently being pulled nearer the Sun, into whose fiery embrace it must inevitably be absorbed. It should be noted in passing that the comets with the apparent shorter orbits are more consistent than the remainder, although themselves erratic.